Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Somewhere Else and Back Again by Zenithofthestars. After finding the One Piece, Luffy and Nami are separated from the crew and thrust into another world. 16 years have passed, and they find themselves back in their own home again. But what is waiting for them when they return? Adios.
Belmere was the first of the two children to experience the Marines in a negative way. She had been walking with Nami when Lieutenant Figs had stopped in front of them. "Hold on, you two. That girl is under arrest." Nami stepped protectively in front of her daughter. "Under what charges?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing as she leveled her glare onto the man. "Cooperating with a pirate," Figs said stiffly, avoiding looking at Nami. She mentioned working with a pirate called Captain Hook. "She is to be brought in for questioning." "No," Nami said. "Captain Hook is a character from a movie. He is not real. Now get out of my way." "I don't know what a movie is," the lieutenant said, "but there is no proof of this pirate not existing. Should she give up the information, her sentence will be less severe." Belmere had hidden behind her mother, peeking out slightly. Nami placed a hand on her daughter's head soothingly as she glared at the man blocking their path. "This is a 12-year-old girl. She has lived her entire life with me. She has not met a real pirate named Captain Hook. Is that enough for you?" Figs shook his head. "No, she had to come with me. If you do not stop defending this felon, you will be considered a traitor." Nami snorted, her hand hovering over her cleam attacked, strapped to her leg and hidden from view under her skirt. "A traitor? Wow. Hey Belmere, we've only been here a week, but would you mind if we left?" Belmere looked up. "Are we going on the Sunflower ship?" Nami nodded, "Yes." Belmere looked at Figs again and cringed. "That man is scary. I don't want to be here with him." "All right then. Your father has been wanting to get out of here too." Nami looked back at Lieutenant Figs. "She's innocent. Leave her alone. We'll be leaving the island today, so we'll be out of your hair." Nami grinned and flipped her hair over her shoulder. "Be you, but you can't leave. You're one of the people from the other world." "Wait." He fell silent, staring past Nami. "We what?" Nami asked, following his gaze. She then gulped. "Oh, this is bad." Standing not 10 feet behind them was Vice Admiral Gadding. "What is bad?" The man smirked. "You harboring a criminal." "My daughter is not a criminal," Nami snapped, glancing between the two ranked Marines. They were blocking off 2 ways of escape. Nami could knock over the stalls and escape to the beach, but Belmere wasn't a very fast runner. She needed help. "She is innocent," Nami repeated, trying to buy time to think of another plan. "She has never been to this world before, so even if she did meet and help a pirate, that's not your concern. It would be the other world's concern." Gadding stared at Nami, making her slightly self-conscious. "I have heard from another member of your party that you and another man insist you are from this world." Nami cursed under her breath. "Maybe so, but my children were not born here. And we still haven't gotten your names or profiles." Gadding tapped his chin, very suspicious. "Suspicious my ass," Nami snapped again. "That's called privacy. So what is your name, miss?" Nami froze at the question. "Damn. That's none of your business." Nami turned her nose up at his question and took Belmere's hand in her own. Suddenly, she spotted a tuft of green hair in the crowd that had assembled to watch the Marines and the supposed criminal. Belmere was trembling slightly, pressing herself against Nami's legs. "Don't worry, sweetie, it's going to be okay." Nami knelt down in front of Belmere, pulling her into a hug. "When I say run, run into the crowd and find Zoro." "Okay," Nami whispered into Belmere's ear. Her lips pressed into her hair to keep her words hidden from the Marines. Belmere nodded slowly, tears starting to gather in her eyes. Nami stood up, meeting the smug-looking gaze of Vice Admiral Gadding. "Are you going to turn her over?" "Well, no I'm not. But I guess you were right about her knowing pirates." Nami turned her gaze back to the crowd. She could see the green head closer now, and Nami took Belmere's shoulders, steering her in the direction she should run. Zoro caught Nami's eye, and Nami nodded towards Belmere. Zoro nodded, understanding what she wanted him to do. "Is that so?" Gadding said, taking a step forward. Belmir, Nami said, run. Belmir took off, reaching the confines of the crowd before either of the two Marines could react and stop her. Nami watched Zoro lurch forward and scoop her up before taking off in the direction of Shaki's bar. And more importantly, the Thousand Sunny. Milo should have been on board, him and Kuina helping Shaki and Duval load food and supplies onto the ship for the start of their journey. Gadding was stalking forward, his face twisted in rage. You are now under arrest, miss. You have helped someone convicted of plotting with a pirate escape. Don't think you can charm yourself out of this one. You could have just let the girl go with us, and gone on your way, Figs added. Leave my daughter with the Marines? Nami scoffed, her hand on her concealed weapon. Not likely. If you had taken her, you would be in even deeper shit. Nami grabbed the Klimatact, shoving the poles together and leveling it so that both ends were pointing at a Marine. Now, I suggest you leave me alone. If my husband finds out you were harassing me, he's gonna be pissed. He finds out you've been harassing his only daughter, Nami laughed. It was nice knowing ya. Harassing my daughter? The crowd parted slightly as a black-haired man pushed his way through. Gadding sized him up. He was scrawny, wearing a black muscle shirt and long pants. His sandaled feet brushed against the grass as he took another step forward. Is that true? He directed the next question to the nameless girl in the middle of the two Marines. Gadding burst into laughter. This is your husband? He's nothing more than a toothpick? The Vice Admiral wiped tears from his eyes. This is the man you're threatening us with? I wouldn't take him lightly, Nami said, with a knowing smirk. I mean, he really can beat your ass. Yeah, right. Gadding scoffed, sizing the newcomer up. There was something familiar about that scar under his left eye. You think you can beat me? The man tilted his head to the side, a dark look in his eyes and the corners of his mouth turned up in a smirk. Yes, I can. You sound confident, but I guess that's okay. It'll be gone when you experience jail. Gadding drew himself up to his full height, staring down at the man. But before I take you in, I still want to know who you are. The redhead and the dark-haired man exchanged a look, and then the woman spoke first. My name? It's Nami. The name drew whispers from the crowd. That's nothing special, Gadding muttered. Nami raised an eyebrow. How long have you been a Marine? 10 years, Gadding said smugly. Nami and the man started laughing. Just 10 years? The black-haired man asked, grinning like a loon. Then I guess we really haven't met, but I still think you would have heard of me. The man reached behind his head and produced a hat, setting it on his head. Beside him, Figs gasped in horror, taking several steps back before stumbling and landing hard on his bottom. My name? It's Monkey D. Luffy. I'm the king of the pirates. He placed his left hand on his shoulder, pulled back his right arm, and let it fly forwards. Gadding couldn't breathe, the revelation shocking him into a stupor. The last thing he saw for a while was a fist aimed at his face. The sun streamed through the thin curtains, causing a dark-haired, long-nosed man to roll away from the light and groan. Usopp, a gentle voice chided. It's past 8, you have to get up. I don't wanna, Usopp groaned, pulling the sheets above his head. Let me sleep. You have to work today, dear. Usopp cracked open one eye and stared up at a blonde woman. Do I have to go? Usopp whined, closing his eyes again. Yes. Kaya's voice was quiet, but firm. If you don't get up on your own then I'm going to send the kids in. Okay. I'm up. The kids don't have to come in. Kaya smiled brightly. Great. I'm going to start breakfast. Don't go back to sleep. She left the room, leaving Usopp to get dressed. When he stumbled down the stairs and into the kitchen, he was tackled by two dark-haired blurs. Daddy, one of them shouted. Mommy said we couldn't wake you up today. Yeah, the other said, a pout forming on her lips. Usopp knelt down. Well, you two did get me good last time. Usopp rubbed a bruise on his cheek before flicking Mary's protruding lip slightly. You know, if you keep that up, your face is going to freeze like that. What? Mary exclaimed, covering her mouth with both hands. Really? Don't listen to him, sweetie, Kaya said, picking up her daughter and bringing her over to the table. Now, it's breakfast time. Brandon scrambled into his chair as well, picking up his utensils and banging them on the table. Food. Be polite, Kaya scolded. But Usopp winced slightly, his son's actions reminding him of his former captain. It's rude to demand food. Mary, don't copy him." Glancing at his daughter, Usopp saw that she had grabbed her fork and knife as well, intending to copy her brother. "How about I tell you a story to pass the time?" Usopp suggested, watching as his children's faces lit up with joy. It always sent a thrill of pride through him when he was them happy. Kaya stood at the stove, a smile gracing her lips as well with the suggestion. "Yeah, tell us a story, Daddy." Usopp leaned back in his chair, running a finger over his chin and pretending to think. "How about that time I was sent to a man-eating island?" The two of them cheered, forgetting their plates and climbing onto his lap. It all started at another island, where the brave Straw Hat pirates were fighting one of the warlords. They were all sent flying to different places. I ended up on an island called Bowen Island. There, I met a man named Heracles. He appeared after I fought and defeated a giant beetle. "A beetle?" Brandon sounded unimpressed. "That's lame. We don't use that word in the house," Kaya called. "Sorry, Mommy." Usopp waved his hand. "Well, it was a very big and strong beetle. He told me that the island I was on was actually a giant plant that ate everything. Even sea kings. It was very powerful, so that I, Usopp, the mighty sharpshooter on the Pirate King's crew, needed a bit of assistance." "He saved you," Mary giggled. "He did," Usopp admitted, "but then I got stronger, I ate a whole lot, and then trained on the island for 2 whole years. I could have become one of the members of the monster trio, but I decided to let Luffy, Sanji and Zoro keep the positions." "Why'd you do that? You could have gotten famous," Brandon asked, disbelief on his face. "Because I was going to become even stronger than them. I was going to become the Pirate King's right-hand man," Usopp explained. "But why aren't you sailing the seas right now? With the Pirate King?" Mary asked quietly. "Granny says you're lying about being in the Pirate King's crew and that you're gonna bring bad luck to the island." Kaya glanced over at Usopp with concern in her eyes. Ever since Usopp had returned to the island, alone and depressed, people had always assumed that after he had set out, he failed. Kaya knew better, having witnessed him join Luffy's crew. When he returned, Kaya was the one who held him when he cried, managing to explain that Luffy and Nami were gone, and the crew had split up. "It's because I came back to see Kaya. I was away for a long time, and I missed her," Usopp said finally. It was true, in a sense. A pan clattered against the stove. "All right, you three," Kaya interrupted. "Breakfast is served." Brandon and Mary scrambled back to their seats as Kaya placed their food in front of them. Usopp left the house and made his way to the docks and the shipyard. Over the years, and with the practice on the Going Merry, he had become a decent shipwright. Decent enough for his co-workers to put up with him. Only a few were truly his friends. Frankie was better than him, but that was to be expected. Frankie had built the Thousand Sunny, the vessel the Pirate King sailed on. The town had grown to 3 times the size it had been when Usopp first left with Luffy, the port becoming a popular place for travelers to stop and resupply or make repairs, be those pirates or marines. Since they were in East Blue, many of the pirates stopping at the port didn't even have bounties, and the few of them that did couldn't do much damage, due to either lack of skill or lack of will. Usopp knew that most of them would be dead before they reached the Grand Line. The Marines in East Blue were ruthless when they saw the black flag. He stepped onto the wooden planks of the docks, waving to Old Man Gert, the master shipwright of Syrup Village as he passed. He continued walking down the docks, new and large, until he came to a certain ship. It was a little bigger than the Mary had been, flying a skull and crossbones on the flag and had a cat figurehead. Several of his co-workers were already there, crowding around it and talking. Joining them, Usopp assessed the damage. The sails were torn, barely usable. There were gaps in the railing, a danger hazard for any inexperienced, and some experienced, devil fruit users. The stem didn't look sturdy either, and the corners of planks and wide seams visible from where he stood. "Hey," the dock workers turned to face the owner of the voice. It was a man, a little older than Usopp. He was probably the captain. "This your ship?" one of Usopp's friends, Marty, asked. "Yeah, that's mine. Can y'all get ready for the Grand Line?" he asked, stepping closer to the workers. Usopp took an involuntary step back, and chided himself for it. He was a man, damn it. "That depends," another worker, Anion, replied. "Can you pay?" The pirate laughed, the sound echoing through the docks. "Sure," he said finally. we won't burn down your town." Usopp turned back to the ship and examined it again, looking for the places it would have to be repaired. The sails would have to be replaced. They weren't going to get far with the rags hanging on the masts now. The stem would have to be reinforced, or the ship would leak. The holes in the rail would have to be repaired if there was a devil fruit user aboard. If not, they wouldn't be much of a problem. "Hey," Usopp interrupted, Anion and the pirate looking over at him. "Do you have any devil fruit users aboard?" The captain paused. "Why do you want to know?" Usopp gestured to the railing. "Because if you do, those rails will have to be fixed. If you don't, then it wouldn't matter as much." We ain't got any users," the pirate replied. "That's good. There's already a lot of damage here. You're going to have to replace the sails. Those won't bring you very far, and the weather in the Grand Line itself will tear them apart. Those boards at the front need to be reinforced, or your ship will take on water. And it's your choice if you want to fix the railings or not. That's the damage I can see from here. I'd have to go aboard to see if there were any other repairs that needed to be made. But you need to have a sturdy ship if you want to cross Reverse Mountain." Usopp relayed the damage to the captain, who just stared at him when he finished speaking. "What's Reverse Mountain?" Usopp grinned, remembering the memory. "It's the entrance to the Grand Line. It's impossible to enter from the side, so you have to sail up the mountain." The pirate continued staring. "I ain't heard of it." Usopp just shrugged. "That's alright. I didn't know about it until we passed Log Town." "You've been to the Grand Line?" The pirate sounded skeptical. "You look puny." "You shouldn't underestimate the great Usopp." He pointed at the pirate. "I sailed aboard the Thousand Sunny, as the sharpshooter of Pirate King Luffy's crew." The workers who heard him began laughing, making Usopp turn red and drop his arm. "Come on, Usopp," Anion said, wiping tears from his eyes. "You've been going on about that the Pirate King only had 9 members of his crew, and you ain't one of them." Usopp turned away, his embarrassment turning to anger as the others kept jeering at him. "I'm going to go aboard and look around." "That okay?" he asked the captain, who nodded despite his laughing. "Does that wimp really think he's a part of the Pirate King's crew?" "You should hear some of the bullshit that comes out of his mouth," Anion replied. Usopp ignored them, scaling the rope ladder dangling from the side and standing on the deck. After a quick run through, he deemed the rest of the ship intact, descending and facing the pirate again. "I didn't find any more damage. If you want, we can fix the stem and replace your sails. Ya know, if y'all work hard like this, you can become a famous shipwright, and not have ta claim to be a pirate." He slung an arm over Usopp's shoulder. "Or you could fix the ship and join my crew, become a real pirate." Usopp pushed off the arm. "Sorry, but I wasn't lying when I said I was part of Luffy's crew. The only way I'm going to join another pirate crew is if Zoro finally steps up and takes over." "Zoro? Ya mean Straw Hat's first mate? The very same? Now, please excuse me. I have work to do." Usopp left the pirate alone on the dock. Usopp sat in the living room that night, flipping through an aged photo album. When the crew had decided to split after Nami and Luffy had vanished, they had divided a lot of the supplies up. Usopp took one of the photo albums, and he was pretty sure Robin and Frankie had the other 2. Nami had gotten her hands on a camera a while before she vanished, and after that, their travels were dointed. The rest of the crew had even put in their own personal pictures, assured that if they were in the album, they would be safer than on their person. He turned a page, and a younger-looking Robin was teaching Luffy how to play chess. Another picture showed Nami, Nijiko, and Belmir. A third was a black and white picture of a living brook and a tiny lagoon. He turned the page again, and this time 3 boys stared up at him from the page. A 7-year-old Luffy grinning madly at the camera, his arms wrapped around a grinning blonde boy in a blue hat, and a younger version of Ace, who was looking extremely annoyed. Another page. He came face to face with himself in this one, him and Chopper dancing around the deck of the Sunny. Brook was visible in the background, playing his violin. "You know," Kaya's soft voice drifted over to him from the doorway. "If you showed them these pictures, they might believe you." Usopp closed the photo album. "I know," he stood and replaced it on the mantle. "But I want them to believe me. Not a bunch of pictures." Kaya came over, a blanket draped over her shoulders. "I haven't lied since I came back, but they still won't believe me, it's hard." Kaya hugged him from behind, her arms wrapped around Usopp's torso. I understand how hard it is. You've lost friends, and these people don't believe you, laughing when you mourn. Kaya's arms tightened. Luffy was my friend too, although I only saw him for a short time. He owes you, Usopp smiled. We all do. You gave us our first ship. Kaya withdrew. If Zoro decides to start up again, I want to come with you. Really? Usopp asked, her previous statement throwing him off guard. Kaya smiled, yes. This town is boring. All people ever do is gossip. I want adventure, like in those stories you used to tell me. The kids would love it too, I'm sure. Usopp took his wife in his arms, smiling. That would be great. Our family, terrorizing the sea. I could teach Brandon and Mary how to shoot. You just have to convince Zoro, Kaya said, tapping the end of Usopp's nose. Usopp smiled again. This time, it reached his eyes. The crowd's whispers had turned into shouts as Luffy knocked out the vice admiral. That was boring, he whined. I thought vice admirals were supposed to be strong. He rounded on Figs. You're only a lieutenant. Are you strong? Nami grabbed his arm. Leave him, we have to get going, now. Luffy pouted, but allowed Nami to drag him away. They didn't have to push through the crowd this time. They parted, not wanting to be anywhere near the Pirate King. The dead Pirate King. The Pirate King who had vanished 16 years ago. The hat itself was more than enough proof, and then the stretched arm. That was enough to throw anyone's doubts out the window. When they had announced Luffy's death, there was a great scramble to find his devil fruit. But no one ever did. And now the reason was staring them straight in the face. He wasn't dead. Luffy and Nami heard the click of cameras as they started running. They caught up to Zoro, who was standing outside the ring of people, holding a crying Belmere. She was passed off to Luffy as they began running again. Hopefully, the Marines wouldn't report to the base right away, and give the newly reformed Straw Hat Pirates some time to ready the ship. What the hell happened? Zoro asked. I beat up a Marine, Luffy said. And now the world knows we're back, Nami muttered, sparing a glance over her shoulder. No one was following. Well, I guess that's a good thing. The newspapers will alert the rest of the crew. Luffy grinned, watching as the Thousand Sunny came into view as they reached the top of the hill. At the bottom of the hill there were 3 people, and 4 actually on the ship itself. While they were gone, the sails had been put up. Bella, hold on, Luffy said, grabbing Nami on one arm and reaching out with the other. He stretched out his arm, catching the mast with his hand and rocketing from the top of the hill. Belmere screamed while Nami laughed, the 3 of them coming to rest gently on the grassy deck. So you can land safely, Zoro shouted from the hill, fuming slightly at all the times Luffy had done the same thing with him or any male member of the crew and landed painfully. Luffy looked over his shoulder at Zoro. Well, of course I can. Then why do you insist on landing painfully? 'Cause it's funnier, Luffy grinned. He released Nami and crouched down so Belmere could climb off his back. Milo and Kuina, who were at the railing, stared at him, their faces full of awe. How much have you loaded? He asked them. Almost all of it, Duval answered, exiting the galley. Just a couple more crates and we're done. Good, Nami said, because we're leaving, right now. Right now? Milo asked, grabbing Luffy's elbow. Why? Luffy grinned down at his son, because I beat up a Marine, and we're in trouble now. Milo stared after him as he jumped off the railing and ran up to the bar. What? Nami passed him, patting him on the head. Get used to it, Milo, he does that a lot. He attacks people? Milo asked. Well, of course, Nami exclaimed. You punched Mason when he was threatening Andy, right? Well, the Marine was threatening Belmere. Milo shut his mouth, unable to argue that point. Well, I didn't think he would be that violent. Milo, Nami said sternly. Remember the stories we told you? The one that ended up being true? He muttered. Yes, those ones. Your father is stronger than people back in New York. The Marines are stronger as well. Nami explained. I don't think Luffy did much more than bruise their ego. Zoro, having climbed onto the ship and overheard the conversation, laughed. Don't worry, kid. We're not much into killing. Not much, that's reassuring. Milo sighed, watching his father exit the bar with an armful of bags. How much is that? Zoro glanced at Nami, who placed a hand on Milo's shoulder and pulled him towards the galley. Once the 2 of them were inside, Nami sighed and ran a hand through her hair. One person, Nami said. That's all this crew has ever intentionally killed. Milo took a step back. You mean, in that story, Blackbeard? Nami nodded. You remember what happened in the story, right? Milo sat down in one of the chairs. Blackbeard was the man that captured the captain's brother and handed him over to the Marines. He trailed off, suddenly realizing the connection. Blackbeard was killed by the captain in a battle for the One Piece. He finished. Dad was the one that killed him? Nami nodded, pulling out a chair and sitting next to him. His name was Ace, she said. Luffy's brother, that is. I had an uncle, Milo asked, frowning. Well, I guess I never would have met him. He lives here, in this world. Nami choked back a sob, holding her hand to her mouth and shaking her head. We never mentioned this in the story. Luffy said it wasn't appropriate for kids. And he was the only one who was there when it happened, she said. But Ace is dead. He was killed by a Marine. Admiral Akainu. Luffy watched it happen. She took a deep breath, using her sleeve to wipe her eyes. We were going to name you Ace, after him, but she trailed off and sighed, shaking her head to show she was finished talking. Ace is a cool name, Milo said. What was he like? Very polite, Nami described. He had freckles and was very strong. She glanced around. We had some pictures of him, but I think the others must have taken the albums. We can show you when we find them. It's been a long time since I've seen him. We don't bring this subject up, Milo. It's very sensitive in the crew who knew him. The part of the story in the Sand Kingdom, Milo started. The captain's brother had weird powers, right? Fire? He ate the flame fruit, Nami said, nodding. She stood and walked over to the sink, splashing water on her face. Remember, don't say anything. Milo nodded. I won't. Is that everything? Zoro asked, glancing around the deck. It seemed empty, with only the 6 of them. Nami had her checklist out, darting from one place to the next. I think so, she called from below. If we need anything else, she appeared in the doorway. We can always stop and pick up supplies. Luffy turned to Milo. We're setting sail in 10 minutes. He gestured to the people gathered on land. If you want to say goodbye, now is the best time to do it. Milo nodded, quickly scaling the rope ladder, handing over the railing and approaching his friends. Nami leaned over, waving and catching Simon's eye. Hey, Simon. What so you want? Simon called back, still angry at them. Neither Luffy nor Nami could find a reason for him to be mad at them. We're leaving, Nami said, and you still owe me a favor. Simon crossed his arms and looked away. You're still going on about that? It wasn't that much. No, Nami agreed, it wasn't. I want you to take care of yourself. Simon jerked his head back, startled at the fact Nami was putting another person before money. He slowly nodded. Nami smiled, leaning back and disappearing from Simon's view. He briefly wondered if he would see her again. Tim, he called to his son, who was hugging Milo and weeping dramatically. We should get back before the Marines they attacked show up and were thrown into the mix. Reluctantly, Tim released Milo, Andy taking his place almost instantly. Hey guys, if you do get back, tell Malcolm I'm going on an adventure. Milo laughed, awkwardly patting Andy on his back. Hey, you 3, Nami called, tossing something towards them. Milo caught it, and then dropped it as he got a good look at what it was. A snail. With a receiver built into its shell. It's a transponder snail, Nami explained. You can use it to talk to Milo. Kinda like a phone, minus the charges. Only your mother would use a snail instead of a phone because it's cheaper, Andy said, picking up the sleeping phone snail. You forget, Milo said, she's probably used to them, being from this world and all. I keep forgetting that, Tim said, sighing. They're called transponder snails, Nami explained. This one has been programmed to call the one we have only, so all you have to do is pick it up and speak into it to call. As long as we're in range, that is. Tim glanced up. Why are you giving us this? Because my son is socially awkward and I don't want him losing the few friends he has, Nami replied, grinning. Milo turned bright red as his friends laughed. I guess this isn't goodbye then, Milo said, shoving Andy off of him. I'll make sure to send pictures. Luffy stretched his arm down, holding it until Milo grabbed on. Both Andy and Tim jumped back, still trying to get used to the abnormalities this world had. As soon as Milo was on board, The ropes holding the 1,000 Sunny in place fell away and the ship lurched. Milo grasped the railing to keep from stumbling. "See ya shakky, Duval," Nami cried, waving. "Thank you for taking care of the Sunny." Shaki and Duval were waving from shore, their words lost as they distanced themselves from shore and began heading up the river and out to the open water. Luffy was laughing, hanging onto the yard and untying the sails. The last rope was released from the sails, and they billowed in the wind. The personalized Jolly Roger with the straw hat was revealed for the first time since the ship was docked in Grove 17. Nami stared up at the sails with a jaw-breaking smile on her face. Zoro was holding 3 bottles of sake, handing one to Nami. "Should we toast?" Nami grabbed the bottle and took a large gulp. "No way, let's just drink." Luffy jumped down, startling Belmir as he landed next to her. "Hey Zoro, where's the flag?" Zoro looked up before pointing to the galley hanging in the kitchen. Luffy nodded. "Come on, Belmir. Wanna help me put up the flag?" "Really?" Belmir asked, grinning. "Yeah?" Luffy disappeared into the kitchen, emerging a few minutes later with a piece of meat in his mouth and the flag clutched in his hands. Belmir climbed onto his back before Luffy rocketed the two of them up to the lookout tower. Luffy braced his daughter as they stood on the roof, watching as she tied the flag to the top. It caught the wind just in time for them to sail out of the small bay, showing their mark off to all the people within view of the water. There were screams from shore as Luffy jumped down with Belmir in his arms. People crowded on the beach as the ship emerged completely and began to sail away, catching the unrestrained wind of the open ocean. Luffy was laughing, waving at the spectators. "You all thought I was dead?" he asked. "Well, guess what, I'm back." Zoro joined him, grinning and holding out a bottle of sake. "Good to be back." "You bet." There were marine warships following them, and Nami was getting worried. She had no idea how to initiate a coup de burst, and Frankie wasn't there. She bit her thumbnail, glancing at the 3 kids they had aboard. Kuina was imitating her father, leaning against the railing and snoring. Milo was at the bow, staring out at the ocean. And Belmir was exploring the ship. That girl had actually found one of Nami's secret stashes, making her proud that her daughter was just like her. Suddenly, Nami stood, her hair flying in the sudden whirlwind. "Oi!" she called, everyone front and center. There had been a slight drop of pressure, and that could only mean bad news. It also meant there was a way to get the pursuing Marines off their tail. Kuina snorted, grabbing her sword and standing. Milo came over, standing lazily behind Kuina. Zoro snorted and rolled over. Luffy climbed over the figurehead and joined the group. "What's wrong?" "There's a storm coming," Nami said quickly. "We can use it to get the Marines off our trail." "All right," Milo said. "So, what are we going to do?" "Luffy," Nami ordered, turning to him first. "Take Milo and show him how to trim the sails. I want them in. Absolutely nothing left to get caught by the wind. Got it?" "Roger," Luffy said, wrapping an arm around Milo's torso and dragging him up the mast. "Kuina, can you wake Zoro and get all loose objects off the deck and inside?" She nodded, heading towards her father. Nami stared towards the east, the direction the wind was coming from. On the edge of the horizon she could see a black line. But it was getting larger with each passing moment. "Luffy," she shouted as the wind began to pick up. "Are you almost done?" "Yes," he shouted back, as Zoro scrambled past Nami with a crate in his arms. "We're coming down." Luffy landed, Milo looking dazed while in his arms. "Good, get inside." Kuina passed them with the last box in her arms, following her father down into the hold. Nami sighed. She would have liked to have gone through the supplies while they were still on deck, but it was better them in the hold than blown off the ship in the storm. She turned her gaze to where her tangerine trees would have stood and sighed. Shaki told her Sanji took them and returned them to Kokoyashi village. She should probably be thankful to him for doing that. They would have died being left unattended for so long. Once Zoro and Kuina exited the hold, Nami ordered them into the galley as well. The storm isn't a cyclone, but it's going to be close. In any case, marine protocol says they can't enter that kind of danger. "So," Zoro asked, "what does that mean?" "It means," Nami slammed her hand on the table, making the 3 children jump as it made contact, "we sail through the storm." Zoro laughed. "I've traveled on many ships these past years, but never once have they said that phrase. Nami grinned. Well then, you had better get creaked, and the wind tore relentlessly at the small vessel as it ventured deeper and deeper into the heart of the storm. It was almost 2 days before it let up, everyone going stir-crazy, especially Milo, who was complaining about missing his video games. But when it finally let up, it left behind a clear, cloudless blue sky and no marines on their tail. Luffy took a deep breath as he stepped into the air. I missed this, he admitted to Nami, who came up beside him and leaned on his shoulder. Me too. We're home at last. In a bustling village on an unusually large island, a black-haired 13-year-old picked up a newspaper, frowning at the title. He read it over 3 times before the lady at the stand demanded he buy it or put it back. Annoyed, he tossed a couple of berry over to the woman and walked off, his eyes still on the headline. Hey, Blake, someone shouted, and the boy lifted his head when he heard his name. What you got? Nico Blake held up the paper. There was an interesting article in the paper today. I think my parents would want to see it. The headline read, "The Straw Hat Pirates have returned. The seas once again have its king." Below that was a picture of a ship with a lion figurehead, and a man with a straw hat firmly set on his head standing at the rail, waving. Usopp scowled as Anion and the pirate captain talked behind him. They had finished the ship earlier that day, and Anion was going over the repair work. The pirate looked impressed, ordering his crew to board and start readying to set sail. Usopp ignored them as much as he could, staring out to sea and feeling a slight twinge of jealousy. This man's adventures were just starting while his were 16 years done. He had thought about the offer to join their crew, to find the scattered members of the Straw Hat Pirates, and set sail again. If Zoro wasn't going to step up, why couldn't he? But he had decided against it. His loyalties were strong, to both his friends and his family. He wouldn't leave his wife and kids to go adventuring. "Y'all ain't comin'," Usopp turned, seeing the pirate grinning behind him. "Thanks for the offer," Usopp said, "but I'm going to decline. I'm part of a different pirate crew, and I can't leave my family." The pirate shrugged, "Shame. Skills are good. We needs to get ourselves a shipwright. And y'all still thinks part of the Pirate King's crew?" "I wasn't lying," Usopp sighed, "once a straw hat, always a straw hat. It's not something I can throw away that easily." He sighed, looking out over the ocean. "If you get across Reverse Mountain, tell Brook I say hi." "Brook? A singing skeleton," Usopp explained, the pirate's expression disbelieving. "He's my friend, and lives at the base of the mountain. Tell him Usopp sends his regards." The pirate tilted his head. A strange one," Usopp shrugged. "I get that a lot. Just pass on the message, will you?" I'll pass it on." He turned to his crew. "Oi, hurry it up, we're leaving." The crew's pace quickened. Turning back to Usopp, he pulled a small bag off his belt and tossed it over. "Here's the payment." Usopp caught the bag, feeling its weight and pocketing it. "I thought the payment was you not burning down the village?" he asked, smirking. "Hey, yous did a good job. I ain't one to back out of that." The pirate laughed. He turned away, climbing up to the deck of his ship. "Hey," Usopp called, "what's your name? I'll watch for a wanted poster." "Warren," the pirate called down as the ropes were released and the ship began moving. "Hey Usopp," Anion caught up to the sharpshooter as he made his way to Gert. "How come he paid you?" "How should I know?" Usopp replied, reaching Gert and picking up the ship log. He marked down the repairs made and the completion date, as well as the payment. He handed the bag of coins over to Gert, who would later split it among the workers who repaired that ship. "You know what that means, right?" Anion slung an arm over Usopp's shoulder, who immediately shoved it off. "Yeah," Usopp sighed, "I know. Party's at my house tonight, come around 7. "Excellent," Anion said. "You know, I don't think I've ever been to your house." "There's a reason for that," Usopp muttered, quickening his pace and leaving Anion behind. His scowl returned as he recalled the unwritten rule of the dock workers. The worker who was handed the money from the client had to host the celebration when they finished the ship. Warren's ship had taken a week to repair, a bigger project than usual, especially with the damage it had sustained. Passing through the town, people were bustling as usual. It was close to 4 in the afternoon, and people were packing up their wares and heading home. He arrived home, the house relatively quiet. The kids would have been at Granny's with the other children in the village. Kaya was either on call as a doctor, or picking up Brandon and Mary. He sat down in the kitchen, peeling off his grease-streaked gloves and tossing them in the sink. The sweat-soaked bandana joined it. He left them there as he left to take a shower, hoping Kaya would come home soon so he could warn her about the party. To his luck, Kaya was in the kitchen when he emerged. She gave him a disapproving look when he entered, holding up his dirty clothing. "The sink?" she asked. "You couldn't have found a better place to put these? What would Sanji have done if you did this to his sink?" "Kick my ass," he answered, smiling sheepishly. "Sorry, I was distracted." Kaya pressed the gloves and bandana into his arms. "Deal with them." "I will. We finished ship today." "Oh?" Kaya asked. "Whose house is it at tonight?" "Ours," he admitted. "Well, that's new. What time will they be arriving?" She turned to the cupboards, intending to pull out a pot. 7-ish, I guess, he told her. "Don't worry about dinner, everyone's going to be bringing something. We can eat what they bring." Kaya nodded, replacing the pot she was in the process of removing and standing. "That's good then, no cooking tonight." At 5 to 7, Marty was the first to arrive. He walked through the door holding a steaming tray. "I brought beef," he said, making his way first to the kitchen, and then to the living room when Kaya kicked him out. Kaya and Usopp had rearranged the living room furniture to accommodate the 10 workers and the food. Kaya kissed Usopp on the cheek. "Be a good host," she ordered, dragging their 2 children into the kitchen and out of the way. "I'll try," he said, turning to greet Marty. "Hey." Marty placed his dish on one of the tables and looked around. "Man, you've got a big house." "It isn't mine," Usopp said, "it's Kaya's." He sighed as there was another knock on the door. "Hold on." He opened the door, revealing Anion and Dre. "Hi." Anion whistled, looking around the foyer. "Nice place." "Thanks. This way," Usopp pointed them to the living room, then placing their load on the table as well. "Make yourself at home," he said. "Just don't touch anything that looks breakable. Or old. Or, just don't touch anything." Anion ignored him, sitting down next to Marty and striking up a conversation. Dre, however, turned to Usopp. "You seem reluctant to have people in your house." "Hey, I guess. It's weird." Usopp shrugged. "None of you believe me." "Come on, Usopp. Your stories are insane." Dre fixed him with a stare. "And you've been going on and on about impossible things." Usopp sat down. "Impossible, but true," he said. "I'm not lying about my travels." An island in the sky. A man-eating island. The Pirate King. The New World. Dre listed off. "Those are impossible things for someone like you." "Of course it's impossible for me," Usopp said. "Me alone. But I wasn't alone. I had my friends to help me." Anion, who was listening in, laughed. "You probably spent those years sulking on another island because you failed. Face it, Usopp. We can see through your lies." Usopp narrowed his eyes, and then there was another knock at the door. "Excuse me," he said curtly, standing and leaving the living room. Opening the door, he was met with several more people. Over the hour, everyone arrived. Kaya came in once, making up plates for her and the children for their dinner and greeting the workers. "Hey Usopp," Jerry said, "I want to hear one of your adventure stories." "Stop it," Usopp said. "If you're going to make fun of me, you can leave." "I'm not making fun of you," Jerry said. "I just want to hear something interesting. There hasn't been anything in the news to gossip about." "Come on," someone urged. "Please, we won't laugh, we're bored." Usopp sighed. "I'm going to regret this." He began talking, recounting the issue in Alabasta, introducing Ace, Vivi, and Karoo, the giant duck. People did laugh, but not mockingly, when he explained Sanji's deceit when breaking into the crocodile's casino. They went silent when he talked about the bomb. Usopp finished, turning his back to them and holding up his left arm. "This sign on our left arm will always be a sign of our friendship," he finished dramatically, having drawn on the X with vegetable dip. "You know, Usopp," Marty said, "you could become a novelist. Put those stories to good use. Or he could publish them and have the remaining Straw Hats angry at him for exploiting their names," Anion said, not looking impressed. Usopp grabbed a napkin of his arm. "It's all in Nami's logbook, which is back on the ship," he said. "She could have sold that and gotten a ton of money. I wonder why that never occurred to her." Usopp trailed off, looking sad. "I guess it doesn't matter now. She's dead." It hadn't been long since the last member of the team had arrived. But there was yet another knock on the door. When Usopp went to answer it, Gert fell through, panting and clutching a newspaper tight in his fingers. "You aren't going to believe what was in the news." "Are you okay, old man?" Usopp asked, helping him upright and bringing him into the living room. Gert grabbed a drink and took a deep breath. "Look at this," he said sternly, holding out the crumpled paper. "I think this is the reason the news coup was late this week." Anayon took the paper and unfolded it, his eyes widening as he read the title. "The Straw Hats have returned," he shouted, drawing the attention from Kaya, who was passing the room. "What?" Usopp shouted, tearing the paper from his grasp. The title was there, and below it there was a picture of the Thousand Sunny. Anayon was right. It did say the Straw Hats were back. He stared intently at the picture. The picture was mostly of the ship, lucky close up. Standing on deck was a black-haired man, standing close to the railing and waving at the camera. It looked so much like Luffy that Usopp had to blink back tears. Another man, this one looking like Zoro, was in the background too, and a small orange-haired girl resembling Nami was standing beside the Luffy lookalike. "Well then," Anayon said, "this proves that Usopp is lying. If the Pirate King has returned, wouldn't he have contact?" "They're imposters," Usopp said darkly, interrupting Anayon. "They're imposters who stole the Sunny." His hands were shaking. "Usopp," Kaya said gently. "Huh?" Anayon snorted. "Even your wife isn't going to put up with your lies anymore." "Anayon," Kaya turned to him. "Shut up." His mouth closed with a snap. She took the paper from Usopp and placed it on the table. "I watched them die," Usopp said softly, venom still in his voice. "I watched Luffy and Nami get hit and vanish. I watched them disappear before my eyes and couldn't do a thing to save them. There is no way those are the real ones." Marty picked up the newspaper, reading the article. "Hey, listen to this," he began reading the article. It began with 4 unidentified strangers. A group was shipwrecked on an island and were brought to Sabaody Archipelago by kind-hearted Marines. The only favor asked of them was to give forward their names, to determine if they would be a threat to the general populace. These 4 did not reveal their names, and it was later discovered they had threatened the people they were with to conceal their names as well. One of those 4 mercilessly attacked a vice admiral and fled. This man revealed himself to be Monkey D. Luffy, king of the pirates and captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Due to the vice admiral's state, the marine base was not alerted until the Straw Hats made their escape. "They stole the Sunny," Usopp snapped, Kaya placing a reassuring hand on his arm. Marty ignored him and continued reading. Pirate hunter Zoro, as well as his unnamed daughter were witnessed in the area, as well as 2 newcomers, believed to be the children of Straw Hat Luffy. Their intentions are currently unknown. All citizens are warned to be on the lookout. Should they be spotted, do not engage and report their sighting to the nearest marine. Marty looked up from the page, meeting Usopp's glare. "Is that it?" Usopp asked. Marty nodded. Usopp grabbed the newspaper back and took a worn photo album off the mantel. People parted as he passed them, none of them ever witnessing Usopp's rage before. Usopp sat down, shoved a tray out of the way to make room on the table and placed the album in the empty space. "What the hell is he doing?" Anayon whispered to Dre, who shrugged. "He's going to compare the pictures he has of Luffy to the one in the newspaper," Kaya replied. "Look for similarities." "Kaya," Dre said gently, as Usopp opened the album and began flipping through it. "We all know he's lying. You have no reason to defend him." "He's not lying," Kaya said firmly. "I've met Luffy myself. Pepper, Onion, and Carrot have met them as well, and if they hadn't set off on their own adventure, they would back me and Usopp up." Anayon sighed in defeat, turning back to Usopp. He had stopped turning the pages and was now carefully extracting a photo from the page. Several of the workers, and Gert, had crowded behind him, staring at the photo in Usopp's hand. "Where in the name of God did you get that?" Gert asked. "Nami got it from one of Lola's crew members," Usopp said. "When we split up, I took this." He gestured to the album. The picture Usopp was holding was of the 2 of them, Usopp and Luffy, arms over each other's shoulders and grins on their faces. Lola and her crew were in the background, as well as Frankie and Chopper doing their chopstick dance on the table behind them. Nami was visible in the corner, smiling and in the motion of clapping. Usopp leaned down, holding the picture next to the fake Luffy first. The two people were almost identical. The scar under the left eye, the stupid grin, the messy hair, the hat. Squinting, he could make out a grainy scar on the back of the fake Luffy's hand. That scar wasn't in the picture he was holding. It was too early for that. Luffy hadn't gotten the cut until they had been attacked. When he disappeared, it was still bleeding. He dropped the picture and pressed his hands to his face. "It's really him," he whispered. He looked up. "He's alive." Usopp jumped to his feet and cheered. "He's back." Blake frowned, glancing between his father, mother, and brother. Both his parents had been surprised when he had burst through the door, waving the paper above his head. When they had read it, his mother smiled and shook her head, muttering about how durable her captain was. His father had shouted super a few times before calming down. "Does this mean we're leaving?" he asked, leaning forward on the table. "As in, going to find him?" Frankie nodded. "Of course, they have the Sunny and don't know how to work half the weapons. There is that, and also the fact they're our friends, and owe a lot to them," Robin said, smiling. She picked up the article again. Pirate Hunter Zoro's unnamed daughter. Believed to be Straw Hat Luffy's children. "Well, it looks like you'll have lots of friends aboard." Blake sighed, sitting down. His mother was impossible to argue with. "Besides," Frankie said, "it will be a super adventure. You like sailing, right?" Blake had to nod. His older brother, Tom, had taught him to sail in the small boats at the docks. "Yeah. This is just like that," Robin said, "but on a bigger ship, and more people." Blake huffed, sticking out his tongue, "But I like it here." "Blake," Robin said, "you've known about this since you were little. Besides, it isn't safe for us anymore, with the captain back. People will be more cautious and suspicious." I know, Blake sighed. His parents had warned him of the dangers of them being found out, the two of them being part of a very powerful crew, and both of them having incredibly high bounties. Frankie grinned, patting his undersized son on the back. "That's the spirit," he boomed, "now go start packing." Both boys, tall, blue-haired Tom, and lanky, black-haired Blake stood from the table, dumping their dinner dishes in the sink and left the kitchen. Milo was bored, sitting on the boards circling the mast. His phone was dead, after 3 days on the ocean. And his charger was at home. In the other world. He fiddled with the black device, tossing it back and forth in his hands. And even if he did have it, there were no compatible outlets on the ship. He sighed, standing and making his way to the railing. Passing his father, who was laying in the middle of the grass. Luffy sat up, leaning on his elbows as Milo passed. "Are you alright?" Milo held up his phone. There's no way to charge it. I was thinking of being dramatic and throwing it overboard." Luffy tilted his head. "Well, if you want to, go ahead. But Frankie might be able to find a way to charge it for you." He looked down to the phone in his hand, shrugging. "I guess I'll hold onto it then." He shoved it back into his pocket and joining his father on the grass. "I'm bored." Luffy laughed. "Well, Robin would say read a book. So, try reading a book." "There are books on the ship?" Milo asked, looking around. "Where?" Luffy pointed to the entrance to the galley. "They're in Nami's room. Ask her to get them for you." Milo nodded, standing up. His mother and sister were sitting at the table, Nami braiding Belmir's hair. Spread out on the counter were piles of maps and charts, most of them looking hand-drawn. Nami looked up at the sound of the door, smiling softly as she saw Milo standing there. "Hi." "Hi, Mom." Milo watched as Nami finished the braid and tied it off, letting Belmir hop off the stool and dart away. "Dad said you knew where the books were." Nami stood up. "Of course, follow me." She led Milo through another doorway and down a hall littered with doors. Turning suddenly, Milo had to stop and backtrack when his mother vanished into a door. The room looked ordinary, a bed, dresser, closet, and a huge bookshelf. Milo's eyes widened. "That's a lot of books." "Well, there are no televisions, video games, iPods, you get the point." Nami pulled out a book from the shelf, handing it over. "Try this one." Milo read the title, The Rainbow Misty. "What's it about?" "The title explains it all," Nami said. "It's a true story, by the way. We've met the people who wrote the book." Milo paused, looking down at the book again. It was thick, but he didn't have anything better to do. "Thanks, I'll read it." Nami nodded. "Just don't ruin it, it isn't my book." Milo nodded. I understand. I won't. Zoro had been dozing peacefully when he was rudely awoken by something being dropped on him. He shot up, a hand on his sword, looking around furiously. The only thing out of place was a newspaper laying a few feet away. Grumbling, he retrieved it, stepping over Luffy on his way to the kitchen. Nami would want to see it, catch up on the news. The previous days had her pestering him and Kuina on big missed events and news. There hadn't been anything big, just the frenzy of new pirates after Luffy's disappearance, and the increase in Marines. Stepping into the kitchen, he spotted Nami and Milo exiting the hallway, the younger holding a book. Hey Nami, he said, holding it up, here's the paper. Nami took it, sitting and opening it immediately. Hey, we're on the front page. She held it up so Zoro and Milo could see. Zoro raised an eyebrow. Well, at least the world knows we're back. I wonder how Garp is going to react, Nami said, frowning. He lost both his grandchildren. He'll probably track us down and beat Luffy up. Zoro shrugged. He did that whenever Luffy did something stupid enough to be in the news. At least he's retired, Nami said. I wonder how he'll react to Milo and Belmere. She looked around. Where is she, anyway? Milo shrugged. Probably getting lost again. Nami sighed, that girl, well, she'll find her way out eventually. Milo snorted, leaving the room and finding a comfortable place outside where he could read. The weather was acting up again, and Nami was staring out at the waves with concern etched onto her face. There was no island in sight, so they weren't able to dock and ride it out. The first storm they had sailed through was bad, and she didn't think the ship could take another one like that. Especially when there were only 3 experienced sailors on board and their shipwright wasn't one of them. Milo and Belmere had never been on a boat before in their life. And Kuina hadn't had any experience with sailing, only being a passenger for most of her life. A drop of rain hit her cheek, and Nami didn't bother wiping it away. Milo looked up from the book he was reading. Only a day had passed since he started reading it and he was halfway through. Go and find Belmere, Nami continued. I don't want her outside in this storm. You stay inside too, alright? Milo nodded, tucking the book under his arm. He began walking away. Nami chewed on her lip, glancing down at her chart again. This area of the Grand Line was known for violent storms. There was an island about 3 days away, but there was no way to reach it in time. She could feel the building pressure in the air around her. She was just waiting for the snap, which would mean the storm was minutes away from hitting. The sky was dark gray, bordering on black. Luffy and Zoro were drawing in the sails on Nami's order, hoping to repeat the circumstances of the last storm and avoid any damage or injuries. But the buildup was much larger than the last one. It might even be a cyclone. She glanced worriedly at Milo, who exited the hold with Belmere in tow. Luffy jumped down when he and Zoro had finished, standing next to Nami. How close is it? He was unusually serious, and that made Nami worried too. Whenever Luffy was this serious, something bad usually followed. He started out over the water, Nami ordering Milo and Belmere into the galley. Kuina darted over to the railing, leaning out over it and staring at the waves. They're getting bigger, she said, concerned. I know. Nami pulled Kuina away from the edge. Go into the galley, and stay there until the storm is over. Blah, Kuina pulled a face. Go, Zoro ordered, and this time Kuina went without complaint. I don't like this, Nami said, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. Not one bit. This pressure, it's big. It might be bigger than a cyclone. Concern crossed Zoro's face as he glanced towards the galley door, where the 3 kids were. Luffy bit his lip. The only thing we can do right now, Nami said, is to ride it out and see what happens. Usopp walked down to the docks, his bag slung over his shoulder. When the party the other night had finished, Usopp kicked everyone out and swore to never host it at his house again. Ever. After his outburst, Anion had laughed at him, complimenting him on his acting skills, before leaving. Usopp hadn't really cared, giddy with excitement. Gert was the only one who stayed after the others left, helping the couple pack up the food and pack it in the fridge. He had left then, still curious about that picture and Usopp's reaction. Usopp approached him at the dock, placing the bag of trays in front of him. No one remembered these, he said. Can you hold them here? I'll tell the others they're there. Gert nodded, reading another copy of the paper. You know, They have all the Straw Hat wanted posters here. Gert held up the page. Which one are you? Usopp raised an eyebrow. You believe me, old man? I'm curious. You've been sticking to that story since you came back, Gert replied. Usopp pointed to one of the bounties. I'm Sogeking, he answered. Gert squinted at the picture. He didn't respond, so Usopp kept walking. Another ship had pulled into the docks. This one no bigger than a longboat. Is this the next job? Marty asked Usopp as he approached. Usopp shrugged. I don't know. Where's the owner? Haven't seen him, Jerry answered, but this boat's in good condition. The owner just might be docking and picking up supplies. Well, Anion said, he's docked in the wrong place. He has to move. Hey! Dre shouted, running down the dock. He stopped in front of Anion. I found the guy. He wants a new coating. A coating? Jerry repeated, glancing down at the boat. On something this small? Usopp shook his head. It's cheaper to do a coating at the repair docks than pay for a spot at the main docks if he isn't staying long. Jerry and Dre seemed to take the answer, but Anion narrowed his eyes. Hey Dre, who owns the boat? Jerry asked as they collected the supplies they would need. He handed several cans of coating to Usopp. He was fancy looking, he described. Wearing a black suit. Blonde hair too. Way too fancy to be a sailor. Usopp froze. The description surprisingly close to Sanji. Did he have swirly eyebrows? He asked Dre as they began walking back to the boat. Dre nodded. Only saw one eye, but yeah, it was really weird. Looked kinda like a dartboard. Usopp stopped walking, causing Jerry to crash into his back and fall to the ground. Oi, what was that for? Jerry asked, standing and brushing himself off. He began picking up the supplies he had been carrying, which had scattered when he fell. Usopp dumped his armload onto the dock and pivoted. Ignoring his co-workers' shouts, he ran up the docks and onto land. Sanji was here. He had seen Sanji a few times in the past years, not as much as Zoro, though. The last time Sanji had visited, Kaya was pregnant with Brandon and Mary. He scanned the marketplace, hoping to see a head of blonde hair. Nothing? Usopp cursed, spinning wildly and running in another direction. He probably should have asked Dre where he had seen him. He paused, running a hand through his hair in annoyance. Are you alright? Usopp looked towards the voice. Betty, better known as Granny to most of the children on the island, was standing there. Several of the children she tutored were clumped behind her. Brandon and Mary waved. Usopp waved back, nodding at Betty. I'm fine. Listen, have you seen a tall, blonde guy around? I need to find him. Betty pointed towards the beach. I saw someone looking like that go that way. Thanks Betty, Usopp said, grinning. Brandon, Mary, be good. We are, Brandon shouted after him, as Usopp took off in the direction of the beach. Your father is quite strange, Betty told the two children. Daddy's a pirate, was Mary's response. Sanji, Usopp shouted as he reached the beach. The docks weren't very far up the way, and Usopp could see Marty heading his way. But, standing near the water, was someone very familiar. Said person turned at the sound of his name, a smile on his face. It's been a while, hasn't it, Usopp, Sanji said. Usopp's knees felt weak, and tears began streaming down his face. I've missed you so much, why are you here? Have you read the paper? Sanji asked. Apparently Luffy's back. That doesn't sit well with me. He removed a cigarette from his breast pocket and lit it, inhaling the smoke. Usopp smiled. Have you seen the picture? Yes, they have the Sunny, too. Usopp shook his head. Not that. The scar on the back of Luffy's hand. The one the Marine gave him before the two of them disappeared. The picture has it. Sanji raised an eyebrow. So, you think he's come back from the dead? Well, Usopp scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. I haven't really thought about how he got back. Nami wasn't in the picture. But, stranger stuff has happened, right? Sanji breathed out a cloud of smoke. I suppose, who's that? Sanji pointed, and Usopp turned, seeing Marty. He had forgotten about him. Hi Marty, Usopp greeted. Sanji, this is a friend of mine. Marty, this is Sanji. Sanji nodded. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Look, Anion's kind of pissed right now, so, I'd watch your back. Marty warned, glancing over his shoulder. Hold on, Sanji. That's your name? I don't believe Usopp mispronounced it, Sanji replied, toeing at the sand. As in, Marty took a step back, quivering. Ow. He's more of a coward than you are, he told Usopp. I am not a coward. Usopp defended himself. I am a brave warrior of the sea. Are you black-leg Sanji? Marty asked, now standing a few feet away, backing up as the two pirates bickered. Sanji plucked his cigarette from his lips and tilted his face up, a wicked smile spreading across his face. That's right. He turned to Usopp, as Marty continued to tremble in fear. You haven't told them yet? Usopp shrugged. No one believed me, and being honest, I really can't blame them. Some of the things we did are just too crazy to believe. And can you stop scaring him? He is my friend. He started it, Sanji muttered, dropping his cigarette butt on the ground and stepping on it. Usopp sighed, turning to Marty. He's not going to hurt you, I promise. What's Anion pissed about? His boat, he's mad that he took advantage of our payment systems. Marty stuttered, staying away from Sanji's legs. I'm a pirate, Sanji said. There's no way I'm paying full price just to see Usopp. I was going to head back today, but I'm concerned about the Sunny and Luffy. You can stay with me and Kaya, Usopp said. I'm sure the kids won't mind. They'll be excited. Oh, right. The last time I was here Kaya was pregnant. Congrats. Sanji followed Usopp as he began walking towards the docks. Thanks. She had twins. A boy and a girl. Usopp explained, grabbing Marty by the collar as he backed away and made to run. Oh really? What did you name them? Brandon, after Kaya's father, and Mary. Mary? Sanji looked surprised. Don't tell me, the going Mary? Usopp nodded, dropping Marty as they reached the docks. He scrambled away. Gert looked up from his perch, frowning and looking down at the paper. Usopp led Sanji towards his boat, stopping in front of an angry-looking Anion. You have some nerve swindling this village. We have had our fair share of pirates land here, and know how to deal with thieves. Anion jabbed Sanji in his chest. If he has a problem with me attempting to swindle him, I'd love to see him against Nami. Sanji whispered to Usopp, who had to cover his mouth to hide his snort. Louder this time, he spoke to Anion. Look, I want a coating on that boat. My boss sent me to get one. So do it. Anion looked taken aback. Alright, you can pay? Sanji nodded. Move his boat to dock 1 when it's finished, Usopp said. Take my spot. He'll be staying with me a few days. Anion scowled, moving away. You're friends with this guy? Yes, I am. Usopp said. I'm done for the day, I'll see you tomorrow. You've only been here 2 hours, Anion shouted, as Usopp dragged Sanji away. He passed Gert, who pointed to Sanji and then to the page with the bounties. Usopp nodded, pointing to his eyebrow. Gert looked down, his eyes widening when he realized who the newcomer was. Who's he? Sanji asked, lighting up another cigarette. Old man Gert. He's the person in charge of the docks. Usopp answered. But that's not important. What have you been up to? Nothing. I've been working at the Barati. I've seen Zoro a lot. He tries to get a free meal. Usopp nodded. I bet that turns into a fight. Sanji nodded. The Marines actually showed up once. He had to run, but left Kuina with us while he got them off his tail. She's actually a pretty decent cook. Sanji followed Usopp into the house, Kaya greeting Usopp from the kitchen when she heard the door. You're home early, something happened at work. Something like that, Usopp said. Sanji showed up. Kaya walked out of the kitchen, greeting Sanji as if it were the most natural thing to do. It's been a while, hasn't it? Welcome. Sanji took her hand, kissing it. A welcome from a lovely lady such as yourself is a blessing, madam. Kaya blushed, giggling. Usopp glowered. Stop trying to seduce my wife. Sanji didn't look ashamed as he stood. Please, allow me to prepare your evening meal. That would be lovely, wouldn't it, Usopp? Kaya replied. The storm was howling outside, and Nami was making tea for everyone. Water was dripping on the floor, but no one could bring themselves to care. Everyone was cold and wet, having been scrambling around in the rain for the past hour, making sure everything was as secure as possible. But when Nami had felt that snap in the atmosphere, they had all but sprinted to the safety of the ship's bowels. A loud thunk startled Nami, who almost dropped the cup she was holding. What is us? She asked. Milo stood, holding onto the table as the ship swayed, before making his way carefully across the swaying floor. He reached the porthole, staring out. "I don't see anything." "Come back," Luffy warned. "I don't think it's safe to stand that close to the window." Milo nodded, returning to the table at the same pace. Nami placed a warm cup in his hands when he returned. "Don't put it down," she warned. "It'll fall and break. Then Sanji will get mad." Luffy laughed. "That's not a good place to be." Nami glanced at him. "That's because you're the reason he has that giant mousetrap." Milo sputtered, "Giant mousetrap." Nami pointed to the corner, where a large board of wood was leaning against the wall. "It's a good thing you're made of rubber, Luffy. You'd have had your spine broken many times over." Milo shuddered at the thought, taking a sip of his drink. Over the course of the next hour, there was a lot of debris hitting the side of the ship. Nami finally stood up, taking a tired-looking Belmere in her arms and headed towards the hallway with all the doors. "I'm going to put Belmere to bed," she informed the rest of the people gathered. Luffy nodded, and Zoro grunted. As Nami turned around, something large crashed into the side of the ship, and a cracking sound tore through the room. Zoro was on his feet in an instant, grabbing Kuina as the ship lurched dangerously. Milo toppled off his stool, sliding on the wet floor before scrambling to his feet. The ship lurched again, tilting at an incredible angle. Milo lost his footing as the far wall tore away after being speared with what looked like the mast of another ship. Luffy swore, shouting for Nami to get herself and Belmere out of the room. "Milo," he shouted, getting a firm grip on the table and stretching his arm towards him. Milo reached out, but missed as the ship tilted the other way, sending Milo plummeting towards the huge gap in the wall. "Milo," Luffy shouted again, retracting his arm and sending it towards his son again. Unfortunately, Luffy wasn't fast enough, and a wave caught his arm as Milo fell towards the water. "No," he heard his father shout before he hit the water, being forced under by the large waves. He kicked desperately, kicking off his shoes and broke through to the surface. The ship had drifted further away. Another wave pushed him down, and by the time he surfaced again, the ship was even further away. An impossible distance to swim. He could see the faint light from the hole in the kitchen wall. Milo kicked hard, getting as much of his body out of the water as he could and waved his arms frantically. "Dad!" he shouted, coughing as salt water entered his mouth. "Dad!" A third wave pushed him down, and this time, Milo lost consciousness. Blake stood next to his father, waiting for the boarding to start. It was early morning, the fog still clinging to the water's surface and the sun barely peeking over the horizon. He yawned, still half asleep. The line moved forward slightly, and they were fractionally closer than before. It didn't help that they were at the back of the line either, and would be the last ones getting on. "How long is this going to take?" Tom asked, looking bored. "Be patient," Robin said, turning a page in her book. "We'll get there soon." Blake looked around, noticing the marine ship that had docked the night before was unloading people. He counted 17, all of them wearing clothing with the marine logo on it, despite none of them looking like Marines. Most of them were teenagers, too. And they all looked unsure of what was going on. A Marine, this one in full uniform, exited last, and seemed to be giving orders. From his distance, Blake was unable to hear what he was saying. The group shuffled towards the line Blake was in, the Marine walking over to the passenger ship and speaking with the captain. "Hi," one of the boys from the group said as they arrived, grinning at Blake. Robin looked up, nudging Tom with her foot. "Go talk to them, it might cure your boredom." Blake looked at the boy who greeted him. Brown hair and brown eyes. He didn't look very special. "Hey," Blake returned the greeting. "My name's Andy," Andy said, holding out his hand. He seemed awfully enthusiastic, despite it being just past dawn. "Blake," Blake replied, taking the hand. Andy shook it vigorously, despite Blake's hand being as limp as a dead fish. "That's a really cool name. Do you have a last name?" "Not a lot of people do. And it's backwards, which is really strange, but I guess that's because I'm from somewhere else and not used to it. I'm still freaked out about all of this, but not going to school is pretty awesome. I miss my parents though." Blake blinked, not hearing half of what the other had said. Another boy, this one also having brown hair, stepped forward. "Sorry about him, he's a bit excited." No problem," Blake said. "It's just, early." My name's Tim. Blake nodded. Why are you on a marine ship? Tim shrugged. We're not from here, if you didn't catch that in Andy's rant. The Marines are helping us as much as they can. Not from here? Tom cut in. Then where are you from? Whoa, Andy said. Your hair is cool. Tom didn't look impressed. Blake hurriedly cut in before his brother could get mad. That's a good question. Where are you from? Robin had looked up, curious at her son's conversation. We're from New York, Tim said. I don't believe you've ever heard of it before, considering it's in another world. Another world? Blake repeated, skeptical. Yeah, Andy cut in. We were at basketball practice, and then everything started shaking. We thought it was an earthquake, but when we tried to get outside, there was only white. Then we crashed, and there was a beach outside. It was cool. We saw a ship, and Milo's mom did something weird and caught its attention. Tim cut into Andy's rant. The Marines helped us, bringing the group of us back to a place called Sabadi? Sabaody Archipelago, Robin corrected, recognizing the name. Tim nodded. Yeah, that was it. After that, we were told we were going to be transported to a safer place, and here we are. Robin looked up at the passenger ship. They were almost at the entrance to the ship. Were you there when the Pirate King returned? She inquired. Tim trailed off. Robin saw his eyes. He knew what happened, and there was a spark of something else. He knew more than just what the newspaper said. My name is Robin, she introduced. Lowering her voice, she said, I'm a friend of Monkey D. Luffy. Do you know him? You know Milo's dad? Andy said, looking incredulous. Robin trailed a finger under her left eye. He has a scar here, and she pointed to her chest. And another one here. Has a straw hat he never lets go of. Tim was nodding. Yeah, he does. Robin smiled brightly. Who else was with him? Milo's mom and sister. And is Milo's mother's name Nami? Both Andy and Tim nodded. Well, I never thought of that possibility, Robin frowned. Another world. I wonder how this one and yours are connected. Robin was brought out of her musings by Frankie, who tapped her shoulder. We're next, he said. Robin produced their papers, hers and Frankie's forged, and handed them to the inspector, offering a smile. He passed the papers back and waved them through. Milo slowly came to. He was hot, lying face down on a grainy surface. He pushed himself up, his arms shaky and coated in sand. He rolled over, laying on his back and squinting at the sky. It took a moment of wondering for him to remember what happened, and then he shot up. Scrambling to his feet, he spun in a full circle before groaning and slapping a hand to his forehead. Great. Just great. He shouted at the water. Perfect. I'm on another deserted island. Brilliant. Excellent. His shouts were heavily laced with sarcasm and anger. Grabbing a handful of sand, he hurled it at the water. And this time, I'm alone. He sat down hard, crossing his legs and glaring. He sat there for a while, staring at the ocean and hoping someone would pass by. Preferable his parents' ship. Eventually, it became too hot to be sitting in the sun, so he stood, hopping over the hot sand to avoid contact with his bare feet. He reached the tree line, basking in the shade. Pulling off his shirt, he shook out the sand, the small rocks feeling uncomfortable against his skin. He turned back towards the ocean, and seeing absolutely nothing but water, decided to explore the forest. It was much cooler than standing around on the beach, and he might find something to eat while walking. Stepping carefully, he stepped onto the thick underbrush of the tropical jungle, watching every step he took. He didn't want to accidentally step on anything, be it sticks, rocks, or poisonous animals. He missed his shoes. Picking his way through the forest, he emerged on the other side of the island less than half an hour later. Milo groaned, the small size meaning no villages or civilization. He yelled again, kicking up a cloud of sand, but froze when he heard voices. He turned in the direction he heard the noise, spotting a large ship coming around the island, previously hidden by the trees. Milo yelped, covering his mouth and scrambling into the tree cover again. He hid himself behind a large leaf, wishing Belmere was with him. She could find the best hiding places. The ship came into view again, dropping anchor in the small bay the island created. Milo shrank back as a smaller boat arrived at shore, carrying a group of terrifying-looking men. He backed away from the shoreline, hoping they wouldn't stay long. He watched as they landed and disembarked, spreading across the beach. As they walked in separate directions, he noticed one of them was a girl, wearing the strangest clothing. She could have walked out of an 18th century painting. The one that caught his eye, though, was the one that appeared to be the leader. He had a head of blonde hair, and was wearing a bright purple shirt. As he turned around, exposing his chest, he saw a strange tattoo. A cross with a semicircle on the bottom half. Now that he had seen the symbol, he noticed that most of the people who came ashore had one as well, somewhere on their body or clothing. Milo must have stayed hidden for an hour, watching as people wandered in and out of his sight. He let out a breath of relief when a large man with a swirly mustache began readying the boat. Others bringing armloads of fruits and dead animals. The mustached man looked around, saying something Milo couldn't hear. Suddenly, Milo felt a hand grip the back of his collar, yanking him out of his hiding place. Milo let out a strangled yelp as he was thrown over the stranger's shoulder. "Hey, put me down." Milo pounded on the man's back, coated in purple cloth. Milo Gulp, who caught him, was probably the leader. "Let me go," he tried again, trying to hick his feet. The man was holding his knees, making it hard to move them. They emerged from the foliage, Milo blinking in the sudden increase in light. "Oi," the man called. "I found something interesting." "What is that?" another voice asked, and Milo felt the man stop. "Is that a kid?" another voice questioned. Milo felt the man move, dumping the teenager onto the ground. He looked up, surrounded by several very large people. Had he thought they were big when he viewed them from the tree line, they were huge. Milo swallowed hard. The mustached man knelt down. "What's your name, boy?" Milo scrambled back. "Don't scare him, Vista," the leader said. "Are you alone here?" Milo clamped his mouth shut, trying to back up more. He hit something, and when he looked up, he saw a scaled face. The scaled man grabbed his arm, pulling Milo to his feet. "You look familiar," he said gruffly. As Milo backed away, he was surrounded. "Don't hurt me," Milo shouted, holding his hands up in surrender. "Please, I didn't mean to come to this island. I didn't find anything, please." He winced as the leader stepped forward, squeezing his eyes shut. He opened them again in surprise when he felt a hand on his shoulder instead of pain. The blonde man was staring at him. "Hey kid, we're not going to hurt you." He met Milo's eyes, frowning at the terror in them. "I'm serious, kid, we aren't going to." "I need to find my parents," Milo said quietly, looking away. "I fell off the ship." "Fell off the ship?" the blonde repeated. "Did you get caught in that storm?" Milo nodded, biting his lip as the man called Vista frowned. "Were you on a merchant ship? Because if you were, there's no way it would have survived that. Even we avoided that." "Vista," the leader said sternly. "I said don't scare him." "I wasn't on a merchant ship," Milo said suddenly, startling even himself with the outburst. "But we had no choice but to sail into the storm." The leader nodded at the information. "You can come with us," he said. "We can drop you off at another island. Or wait until we find your ship. As long as you don't mind pirates, that is." Milo bit his lip, backing up again and looking hesitant. "I don't know." "Come on kid," the only female in the group said. "It'll be fun, we need a cabin boy." Milo looked appalled, and the people surrounding him laughed. "My name's Marco," the leader introduced. "I'm the acting captain of the Whitebeard Pirates." I'm Milo," Milo said, not using his last name. Both of his parents had told him to avoid using it until he had a bounty on his head. The name Monkey was feared throughout the seas, and the less connected he seemed to the Pirate King the better. Well, he probably could have introduced himself as Milo Monkey, as the names in this world were backwards. Marco didn't question the name, gesturing for him to board the longboat. He still hesitated, wondering how his family was faring. Milo hoped they were okay, as he stepped onto the wood. He didn't trust them yet, but they seemed nice enough, and they were willing to help him get off the island. Sanji was standing at the stove, both of his hands occupied as he prepared dinner. Kaya, Usopp, Brandon, and Mary were sitting around the table, the two children listening intently as Usopp and Sanji recounted their battle with Gecko Moria on Thriller Bark. "Did you really beat up a strong pirate, Daddy?" Mary asked. "Of course I did," Usopp said. "Her name was Perona, and I stopped her with cockroaches." "Ew," Mary muttered. "I don't like bugs." Sanji laughed, adding sauce to one of the pots on the stove. "Don't worry, I don't like bugs either." They get into your food, and it's really annoying. Especially when Marines ruin their own food for attention. That's gross, Brandon put in, sticking out his tongue. I hope the Marines don't do that here. Well, I can assure you there are no bugs in this food, Sanji said, pulling down plates and starting to arrange the food on them. I used to feed a king, there's no room for imperfections. He dished out the food, placing each plate delicately in front of each person. Enjoy. Brandon and Mary picked up their utensils, Kaya warning them to eat properly, and not stuff their faces. Usopp looked eager too, and Kaya repeated her warning to him, be polite. Sorry, Usopp said, it's been a while since I've eaten Sanji's food. I've missed it. It's nice to hear that some people enjoyed it, Sanji said. Food is meant to be enjoyed, not shoved down your throat. That might happen again, Usopp said, with Luffy being back and everything. Brandon, what did you mean when you said you hope the Marines here don't do that? Granny said that there's gonna be a Marine base on this island soon. Usopp glanced at Sanji, and the cook just shrugged. They're taking over. I don't know if you've noticed the decrease in powerful pirates since Luffy and Nami vanished. Speaking of Luffy, do you really think it's him? Sanji asked. He had asked before, but the idea never stuck to him. Usopp shrugged. There's no way Duval would let the Sunny fall into the wrong hands, and then there's the scar on the back of his hand. Remember the Marine that attacked us? He was the one who gave it to him. Sanji picked up the crumpled newspaper, his eyes resting on the picture. The Marine stabbed Luffy's left hand, and it went all the way through, Sanji recalled. It was the only injury he sustained. But when that Marine aimed an attack at Nami, he jumped in the way, intending to take the blow. But it wasn't an attack, Usopp continued where Sanji left off. It was some kind of weird light. It hit them, but didn't hurt them. Sanji grimaced, but then they started to vanish, and the Marine was laughing, even as we pushed him overboard. Nami and Luffy were completely gone before we could do anything. And that was the end of the Straw Hat crew, Usopp finished sadly. Everyone was quiet, even the children, who were listening intently. I haven't heard that story before, Brandon said quietly. It's sad. Usopp nodded. It is sad. That was the day the Pirate King stepped down from his throne. He took a deep breath. But he just might be back to reclaim it. Sanji leaned back in his chair. I'll only believe it when I see them again. Usopp grinned. I'm sure we will. Yo ho 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 ho. Oi Laboon. Look at that. There's another ship that made it over the mountain. Warren looked up at the sound of a voice. And was met with the strangest sight. The worker back at Syrup Village, the one who claimed to be a part of the Pirate King's crew, wasn't lying when he said they had to cross a mountain to get into the Grand Line. Maybe he had been to the Grand Line before. Before him was a skeleton, with a huge afro. Are you alright? The skeleton questioned, leaning down. Around Warren, the rest of the crew began to stir, and groans could be heard. We're fine, Warren told the skeleton, just a bit shaken up. Yo ho ho. That's expected. The skeleton nodded, looking around at the people lying around. You're welcome to stay and rest up a bit. Warren stood up. That would be helpful, he admitted. My name's Warren. Good name, the skeleton laughed. I am Brook, he bowed. And this, Brook gestured towards the ocean, is Laboon. Warren, and a few others who were conscious followed Brook's arm. A huge whale loomed over the ship, one of its eyes staring down at the tiny ship. That thing is huge, Warren heard someone say. Warren paused, remembering the worker that had repaired the ship. Usopp? He had said something about having a skeleton friend named Brook? Oi, Brook, do you know someone called Usopp? The skeleton looked surprised. A great feat for someone without a face, at the name. You know my friend? He helped us, Warren said, fixed our ship up good, told me to send you his regards. Brook laughed, clapping his hands together. It's wonderful to know he's alright. I wonder how the rest of the crew is doing, questioned, looking around as everyone began standing and stretching. Didn't he tell you? Brook asked, jumping off the ship and landing on shore. We were part of Luffy's crew once. Warren sat down hard. So, he really wasn't lying? Brook laughed again, walking up to the whale and patting its nose. It was then that Warren noticed the painted straw hat skull and crossbones painted on the front of it. He was a good friend, Brook said. I can never thank him enough for helping my friend Laboon. So when he asked me to join his crew, I said yes, of course. Warren stood again. several other people listening in. When he died, I came back here and helped pirates start their journey. It's great fun, and I've been doing it ever since the old man who used to do this died. We'll stay a few days, Warren decided. To get ready, we'll need it. Brooke looked happy. Excellent. I'll have people to talk to. I do hate being alone. It makes me cry. Even if I have no eyes for tears to come from. Skull joke. Yo ho 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 ho. Nami cursed loudly and colorfully, causing several people around her to widen their eyes. Luffy put a hand on her shoulder, his other hand keeping hold of Belmir's. We'll find him, he assured. He's alive. I know it. I know he's alive, Nami said, twisting and burying her face in his chest. He's strong. But I'm worried, and these damn people aren't being any help. Luffy rubbed her back soothingly as Belmir hugged Nami around the waist. Nami smiled down at her, wrapping her arms around Belmir's shoulders. Luffy went to readjust his hat, but pouted when he remembered it was back on the ship with Zoro and Kuina. They had docked at the other end of the island, away from prying eyes. Nami took a breath, calming herself and approaching another person. She held up a photo of Milo. Have you seen this boy? She asked. The man paused, peering down at her over his sunglasses. Why? Your boyfriend run off. He looks a little young for you. Nami bit her tongue to keep from insulting the man. He's my son. Have you seen him? The man laughed. How much you gonna give me for the info? Mommy, Belmir called, having stayed by Luffy. You should electrocute him. The man raised his eyebrows. Electrocute? He watched Luffy shush Belmir. A little thing like you? He turned back to Nami, who was fuming. Have you seen my son or not? She demanded, her voice full of fury. Answer my question or get the hell out of my way. Like I said, the man replied, how much you gonna give me? Hey Nami, Luffy said, coming to stand beside her. Do you mind if I beat him up? Nami took Belmir's hand. Go for it, she growled, taking a few steps back. He eyed the smaller male up. You're tiny, he said, this will be easy. Luffy cracked his knuckles. If you answer her question, I won't hurt you. He gave the man one last chance. Brave one, aren't you? The man leaned down. I ain't seen the kid, he sneered, but I'm still willing to fight you. Luffy turned back to Nami, whose face fell. Go back to the ship, Luffy said, I'll be there in a few minutes. Nami nodded, walking down the street and dragging a protesting Belmir. But I want to watch Daddy fight, Luffy heard his daughter say before they rounded a corner. He turned back to his opponent in time to see a fist flying his way. Luffy raised his hand, catching the fist in his hand. The man's eyes widened in surprise before jumping back, pulling his hand from Luffy's grip. Lucky shot, he muttered, rubbing his wrist. You don't want to be fighting me, he warned. I'm a pirate. Luffy tilted his head. Really? Well then, we're more alike than I thought. He took a step forward, raising a fist. I'm a pirate too. Can't be a very good one, the man said, lunging at Luffy and swinging a leg. Traveling with your family and everything. Luffy jumped over the leg, bringing his foot around in midair and landing a blow on his opponent's chest. He stumbled back, wheezing. They're strong, Luffy told him. By now, their scuffle had attracted the attention of several bystanders, standing around and watching curiously. Angry, the man launched himself forward again, but Luffy sidestepped and the man is sent tumbling into the dirt. That brought a laugh from the crowd. You're boring, Luffy whined. I want to fight. He ducked as a newcomer swung a fist at the back of his head. Luffy grabbed the arm and yanked the man over his head, slamming his back against the ground. That's not very nice, Luffy scolded. Sneaking up on people is bad. Someone could get hurt. That's kinda the point, a third man shouted, emerging from the crowd and charging. Luffy sighed, grabbing the man's arm as he tried to attack and throwing him over his shoulder and into a building. The crowd parted as he flew by. Is that it? He asked the first man, who was opening his eyes. 'Cause if it is, I'll be going now. I have to find my son. The man struggled to his feet, eyes widening at the two other men sprawled out on the road. My captain will defeat you, he cried, running off and leaving his comrades in the dirt. Luffy crossed his arms and stared after him. He seems like a coward. Who was he? An older man with a long beard stepped forward. That was a bad move, sir. His captain is Doggy Henton. He has a bounty of 45 million. I've never heard of him, Luffy said, frowning. Besides, my bounty is higher. You will, the old man warned, pointing to the two unconscious men. He doesn't take kindly to people attacking his crew. They started it, Luffy said. Me and Nami just wanted to ask him a question. He shrugged. Now that we know Milo isn't here, we'll move on until we find him. Is Milo your son's name? An equally aged woman stepped beside the old man. Luffy nodded. Good luck finding him. If he was lost in that storm, I pray for his safety. Luffy grinned. Milo may not know it, but he's strong. He can take care of himself. Don't worry, he'll be okay. He turned, walking back up the path and out of sight. What a strange man, the old man said. The woman nodded in agreement. Daddy, Belmere jumped into Luffy's arms as he boarded the ship. Did you beat him up? I did, and two more. And I think I pissed off his captain. Luffy answered, as Belmere climbed onto his shoulders. There might be more fighting. Zoro grinned. Great, I need some practice. Nami sighed. Let's set sail. Go around the other side of the island. Luffy insisted. I want to fight the guy's captain. And this time I can watch, Belmere insisted, the grin on her face identical to Luffy's. All right, Nami sighed, turning towards the helm as her family cheered behind her. But don't take too long, we still have to find Milo. She steered the ship out of the bay, and caught the wind as she turned it towards the island's harbor. Zoro stood, placing his hand on his swords in anticipation of the fight. They sailed into sight of the harbor. A large ship, bigger than the Thousand Sunny, was docked there, flying to Jolly Roger. Luffy grinned as they sailed closer, spotting the man he had fought earlier. He was talking rapidly to his captain, though they were too far away to hear what they were saying. The captain didn't look impressed, his arms crossed. Hey, Luffy shouted, waving. They both looked up. Do you still want to fight? The man's jaw dropped, staring at the flag, and then at Luffy. The captain's eyes widened comically, taking a few steps back and dropping to the ground. Luffy started laughing as the docks cleared, people shouting at the sight of the Pirate King. The captain, Doggy Henton, slowly shook his head, making Zoro sigh. I guess we're not fighting. Luffy stuck out his tongue, making a face at the other ship. Belmere joined him, copying his movements. They sailed past, not stopping and heading out to find the nearest island to continue their search. Blake sat near the railing of the ship with a book in his hands, frowning as the wind turned the pages. A few minutes later he gave up, closing the book and resting it on his lap. He was approached by the two people he met in the line, who sat down in front of him. What do you want? Blake asked, leaning back against the railing. To talk, Andy said, smiling. I'm bored, and there's no internet service here. Blake blinked. Internet? Tim shook his head. It's something from our world. It doesn't exist here. That's right, Blake thought. These people claimed they were from another world. Blake nodded at Tim's explanation, resting his elbows in the book in his lap. Tell me about your world. I'm curious. As am I, Robin said, appearing beside the group. She sat down next to her son, smiling. I'm curious as to where Luffy and Nami spent the past 16 years. I still find it hard to believe Luffy is from this world, a new voice interrupted. Simon frowned at Robin. How is he doing? Robin asked Simon. Simon was startled by the question. Well, he's happy, I guess. He works at the docks with me. And Nami? Robin questioned. She's a newscaster, reports the weather. Hat seems appropriate, she is the navigator. Milo's dad used to tell us really cool stories when we were younger, about adventurers. Andy said suddenly, frowning as a thought crossed his mind. He didn't use names. He used titles, like captain and navigator. If you were his friend, you would have a title too, right? Robin nodded. I'm an archaeologist, she answered, and Frankie is the shipwright. Do those sound familiar? Andy nodded. Yeah. Simon paused. He did say those stories were true, right? He asked his son. Tim nodded. Yeah. Belmere hasn't heard them through though. I wonder how she's faring. She's only 12. She also has her entire family on this side, Simon pointed out. He shook his head. Her father's a good man, he admitted. And Nami could kick my ass if she wanted to. They're safe. Frankie, who had overheard the conversation, stepped in. Belmere, isn't that Nami's mother's name? Robin nodded. I guess she named her daughter after her mother. I wonder why Luffy named his son Milo. He said something about honoring Ace and Sabo once, right? Frankie nodded. Maybe he meant honoring them in a different way. How old is Milo? 16. Robin nodded. That would be it then. The pain was probably too fresh to bear calling someone else Ace. For Nami, it was 13 years. But for Luffy, it was only 4. For what? Simon asked. Belmere, Nami's mother, was killed by a pirate named Arlong. That would be 29 years ago now. Ace was Luffy's brother, and was killed by a marine, Admiral Akainu. Luffy had a brother? Simon asked, surprised. I never knew. He had 2 brothers, Robin told him. Ace and Sabo, although Sabo died when they were younger. Why are you telling me this? Simon asked, after a long silence. Because you're going to hear a lot while in the care of the Marines, Robin replied. It's best you knew the full truth, and not a muddled-up fragment of the truth. You might even meet the man who killed Ace. Simon swallowed hard, realizing his friend had a lot of secrets than he first realized. He had thought Luffy to be an open and optimistic man. He couldn't lie very well, so Simon didn't worry about him keeping secrets. But in all the events that had transpired so far, this other world and Luffy's connection to it. His friend was born in another world, and came through by accident. Then, in a twist of events, he was returned to his home world, where he was a king. The Pirate King. And now brothers that he never mentioned. Luffy was one complex man, and that scared Simon. Robin was watching him curiously. You really don't know anything about him, right? I didn't know he could be so secretive. What else has he done? Has he killed anyone? He's a pirate, right? Robin winced. It was small and hidden, but Simon saw it anyway. There was one man, and now that he's back, maybe 2. Tim and Andy reeled back at the new information. Milo's dad killed someone? You might want to keep your voice down, Robin warned. Yes, he did. One man, one despicable man, who deserved it. No one deserved to die, Tim snapped back. And what's the, maybe 2, is he planning to kill someone else? Marshall D. Teach is the one who handed his brother to his death, Robin said, anger creeping into her voice. And Akainu murdered Ace in front of Luffy. Neither of them are good people. So you feel no guilt in causing their death? Tim asked. Robin looked him in the eyes. No, there were whispers as Sanji and Usopp walked through the town. Usopp was grinning, having explained to Sanji the night before that no one in the town believed he was a part of the Pirate King's crew, and maybe having Sanji here would erase the disbelief. You know, Usopp, Sanji started, my wanted poster is as unrecognizable as yours. Nah, Usopp said, waving his hand, yours is pretty close. He spent the rest of the morning nursing a bump on the head. Anion approached them later on, frowning at them both. There's been rumors going around, he said. Marty's saying Black Leg Sanji is here. He turned to Sanji. I'm assuming he means you. Sanji nodded, his expression not changing. What's it to you? You're a pirate, Anion said. Isn't that enough? Anion, Usopp sighed. There are lots of pirates in the East Blue. We fix their ships. None of them have a bounty as high as his, though, Anion said, not taking his eyes away from Sanji. Sanji shrugged, lighting a cigarette. I come in peace, he said sarcastically. Is that enough to calm you down? Anion looked angry, silently fuming as Usopp laughed. But he didn't do anything. I still want to know what you're doing here, Anion ground out. Everyone's wondering why such a famous pirate has shown up here. I work nearby, Sanji answered seriously, and Usopp's my friend. But how the hell do you know him? He cried out, frustrated. Usopp spotted Dre standing at the edge of the street, looking as concerned as Anion. Sanji exhaled, releasing a cloud of smoke and looking annoyed. Usopp answered the question. I joined the Straw Hat Pirates before Sanji did. In fact, Sanji joined right after me. I don't care if you don't believe me, it's the truth. Frankly, I'm getting annoyed you refusing to believe the fact I'm part of a powerful pirate crew. So you can either accept the fact I am or shut up and get out of my way. Anion closed his mouth with a snap and stalked away, growling under his breath. Wow, Sanji said, smiling at Anion's retreating form. I'm impressed. How long have you been putting up with that guy? Long enough, Usopp answered. It's the fact I don't have a bounty on my head. It's on Sogekane. You still have the mask, right? Usopp nodded, patting his bag. I always keep it. Like I said, there are lots of pirates in this sea. And we do get threatened. If there comes a time the great Usopp is needed, I will defend my village. You do that, Sanji said. I meant, why don't you just show them? Wouldn't that make it a whole lot easier? Usopp shrugged, not looking concerned. They can mock me all they want. It's when they start making fun of the rest of you I get mad. That's sweet. I'm sure the Moss Head relishes in your loyalty, Sanji laughed. Usopp laughed too. He drops by a lot, and the kids love Kuina. He never stays longer than a week though. I guess that's a good thing. He never leaves the house, arriving late and leaving late. No one here had ever seen him. And I suppose claiming the Pirate King's first mate visits a lot, but has never seen adds to the idea you're lying. Sanji verbalized what Usopp was thinking. Yeah, I'll be grateful when Luffy gets here, Usopp said. Kaya wants to come with us this time. Just think about it, Usopp exclaimed, throwing an arm around Sanji's neck and holding out an arm dramatically. The Straw Hat's back in action. Yeah, Sanji said, trying to pry Usopp's arm off his neck. Great. Let go, you're stronger than you look. Milo sat on the deck of the Moby too, holding his phone and sighing as he took off the back. It was waterlogged, and a stream of water started pouring out when he removed the battery. Great, he muttered. Perfect. What's that? Milo glanced up, seeing Vista. My phone, he sighed. It's broken now. What's a phone? Milo snorted. It's like a transponder snail, he said. We use these where I come from instead of the snails. He held up the device. I wonder if I dry it out it'll work, he mused, shaking loose water from the battery. That's strange, Vista said, eyeing it. I can't say I've ever seen something like that before. Probably not, Milo agreed. I'm not from around here. That explains why you don't know who we are, Vista grinned. Honestly, who hasn't heard of the Whitebeard Pirates? Me, Milo said. Have you heard of the Straw Hat Pirates? Vista tried. Not until last week, Milo replied, shoving his useless phone into his pocket and standing. There are no pirates where I come from. None, absolutely none. Zip. Nada. Zero. Are you sure? Vista leaned forward. Why? Vista laughed at Milo's outburst. Okay. Anyway, I was sent to bring you to Marco. He wants to talk to you. Milo shrugged, lead the way. When Milo had boarded the ship yesterday, he was terrified and didn't know what to expect. He was met with chaos. That was the only word he could think of to describe the crew. People were everywhere, shouting, yelling, and running around. None of them questioned Milo's appearance on the ship, several of them introducing themselves and welcoming him to the ship. Milo had lost his fear pretty fast after that. Especially when the tiny Haruta tackled a man 3 times her size for calling her short. They were crazy, but he could deal with it. Vista led him into the ship, stopping in front of a door and knocking. Marco answered the door, stepping aside to let them in. As Milo stood in the center of the room, he got a good look around. The room was neat for the most part, the desk in the corner covered in paper. There was also a black transponder snail sitting in the corner of the desk, sleeping. Thanks, Vista, Marco said, glancing at Milo. Milo, he glanced up at his name. If you're going to travel with us, we've got to talk. About what? Milo asked, his fear returning. I mean what I said. I'm not going to steal your treasure or anything. It's not that, Marco said. If you're going to travel with us, we need to find you a job on the ship. Milo relaxed instantly, nodding. Dad used to say that if you didn't work, you didn't eat. Your father's right, Marco said. Since you know nothing about sailing, I think I'm going to have to take Haruta's suggestion. We really do need a cabin boy. Milo deflated at the suggestion. A cabin boy? Marco shrugged. It's not a bad job. Just clean up the division commander's rooms. I would fear for your health if we let you near the barracks. He cracked a smile, and Milo laughed. That doesn't sound too bad, he admitted. One more thing, Milo, Marco said, as Milo turned to leave. If you have any secrets, you're free to keep them secret, unless they will harm the crew. Milo swallowed, but nodded. I understand. Marco smiled at him. Great. Welcome aboard.